Qasar, Peter, it's great to have you on. Last time you were on, I publicly declared you, and I stand by that to this day, the most interesting company in autonomy. And just when I didn't think things were getting more interesting, you cut a major deal with Komatsu, and then you announced a software system for autonomous driving. I gotta tell you guys, I'm sticking with the call the most interesting company in autonomy, but I gotta ask you, what the heck is next?
Grayson, well, great to come back on, and thanks for having us on. I'm extremely flattered when you say that, but it's also a little nerve-wracking, I would say, because now we have to somehow stay interesting.
You have to live up to these expectations.
Yeah, you can just look at our clothes. We're not the most interesting people. But a couple of Michigan guys who in some parallel universe are like middle managers at Aptiv. We very much appreciate the accolades, but I think our view is there's problems to be solved. Let's keep solving them and doing them in a thoughtful, responsible way with good people. And people always ask me these things about the future of the company, and it's like I don't know what else we would do. That this is a fun place to be in, especially given our background. So
I still think in 2025 we're barely at 1% of the impact of autonomy, and so as we think about the future of the company and our ambitions, we really think 99% of it is still ahead of us.
Absolutely.
But the thing I love about you guys, you're not resting on your laurels. You keep building, you keep doing new partnerships. And Peter, you put out this really great video for the self-driving system for automotive. Talk about that. How did you build it? Why did you build it?
Yeah, so it's actually been an investment now for, I think, longer than most people think. And it really builds upon everything that we've been doing as a company over almost the past decade. But yeah, it's an end-to-end solution for level 2 autonomous driving. So, or level 2 ADAS, I think is a more accurate way to put it. So advanced driving assist systems. And it's a big investment for us. It's a real investment, and we're going to take it to production.
Qasar, when Peter says take it to production, is that because you were looking at the market and you saw what I call the licensing market, this growing adoption of companies looking to license, and you had Stellantis, which shut down the SAE Level 3 program, and Neuro's doing the deal with Lucid. Did you see all these market opportunities, and that's why you decided to commercialize it?
Yeah, roughly. But these are longer projects than those are very recent announcements. I think we were probably already planning the video when those announcements were coming out. So I think what really informed us, probably primarily more than anything else, is how long can you talk about autonomy before you talk about China? Is always like a great, like a stopwatch kind of a question. And we're just very impressed by what's available in production in China. These are not demos, these are not partnerships, it's in production. And I think a while back when we did visits, we've done them multiple times, and we obviously have recruited a lot of people out of the Chinese ecosystem as well. We thought, there's an opportunity to do this because of the existing geopolitical tensions. Those systems are probably not going to make it out in any significant way anytime soon out of those markets, creating a little bit of an arbitrage. Also, if you look in our ecosystem, FSD has gotten really impressive. To leave the marketing aside, leave the lawsuits aside, it's just an impressive system. And I think if we were sitting here in 2015, you would be very skeptical. You'd have that level of performance with that compute and that sensor suite, and that's inspired us in the most positive way. So all that kind of was the input, more than somebody's going to make money, let's make money. It was just like, I think we're a product first company, and we really think about what are the best products out there, and do we have a shot at making the best version of that product in the space. The last thing I'd say on the general question of why get in there or why now is what Peter said is, we've been in autonomy in the defense verticals and other verticals a long time, and we can use all of that knowledge and the cost of building those tools and the data engine and the fleet data gathering in the fleets. We can distribute it across multiple verticals and multiple OEMs, and that allows us to actually bring a system to market which is just fundamentally cheaper. I think that's a big deal in the car business. It's a big deal in all business, car business. And then that's the SDS stuff. And Komatsu, we like to say a business as usual. We've done a number of these large engagements in large verticals. It's autonomy deal. It's a vehicle operating systems deal. It's a long deal, 6 years, relationship that we're establishing. So it'll be, it's more of the, I would say, the traditional applied stuff that we've been doing, and that we've been working with Komatsu for many years already. To be very clear, this is just the next large step there.
And maybe a more macro point as well is when Qasar and I are thinking about our own strategy, we're always thinking about we want our customers to really win and to really have amazing products. And so when we're thinking about what products to build, it's usually through the lens of, well, what would make our own customers super successful in their domains? And that sort of leads to some of these ideas.
Yeah.
And Qasar brings the point, Peter, around China. If you look at the Chinese mobility market, the AV market in China, there's a common denominator around customization. A lot of these products be customized with dongles or different software updates. When you deliver the SDS to a customer, can they customize that, integrate that into their vehicle? Or do they have to kind of start all over? How does that work?
I don't think there's any version of the future where you don't do that. I think there's a version of fitting to the needs of the customer. Absolutely. Sometimes those needs might be certain price points. Sometimes those needs are certain vehicle type. What you're doing for a Komatsu hauler, which is just a giant machine, and what you do for a passenger car, those are very, very different form factors. So the autonomy systems need to be able to adapt to that. So absolutely. I think I would say the bigger question that's on the mind of lots of customers or lots of OEMs globally is, should we, when we partner with somebody externally, do we partner with somebody that's going to be there for the long haul? That's a real question. And we've seen in, the podcast like this, you're really talking to industry insiders. The average person doesn't, listen, no offense to you, Grayson, to that road to autonomy, is people are really interested in autonomy. And you don't need to enumerate all of the hurdles. Sometimes it's been, an OEM decides to pull the plug. That's happened multiple times. And sometimes it's the company runs out of money. And sometimes it's, there's all these permutations. We've isolated a lot of those risks. And I think the OEMs, that resonates also super positively with OEMs. You want to have long-term partners.
How do you isolate the risk?
Yeah, there's a great line. There's intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them, right? So we're trying to be more genius than intellectual. Intellectual is, it's great if you're an academic, but we gotta pay the bills here. And I think so when we started the company, we very much, now, getting closer to 10 years ago, it's in the name of the company. We always wanted to make sure we were taking research and applying it, which is really, doing the engineering rather than the research. And I think that's one massive way to reduce risk. If you look at the humanoid space as an example, just a really interesting space that's emerging, it actually has a lot of parallels to autonomy 10 years ago. Lots of funding by experienced founders, big names, but it's still very researchy. And so I think, I don't know how the humanoid universe will unfold, but focusing on the application, on the killer use cases. And for us, 10 years ago, the killer use case was tooling, making sure everyone has the right tools, I think is the right way to de-risk. And so, and we wouldn't have, honestly, we don't get into SDS now, and we don't, the mining work we've been doing for a long time, but we don't get into these products just, as off of a whim. We're thinking about this for a long, long time. All the way to when Peter and I started the company, we knew we wanted to deploy software on a vehicle. So you're talking almost 10 years ago. So you're talking about chewing on this in the background for many, many, many years before you say, actually, I think we can make a compelling product in the space. So when we hit the space, we really have a good chance at being a real player in the space and not just, following somebody else. I think one of the things I learned a lot being an investor at YC. It's a tremendous opportunity because you just see volume. YC is it's like just you're making 100 investments every batch, 150 investments every batch. And one of the perennial mistakes that companies would make would be they wouldn't think through some of these things. And what they would really do, instead of doing first principles thinking, which we try to really underline in the company's culture, is they would look at competitors. And they would just say, well, the competitors are doing this, so let's do this. The competitors are doing, robotaxi, let's do this. Competitors are doing delivery, let's do this. Competitors are doing, so the competitors are doing L2+, let's do this. And honestly have more respect for those companies. And I don't think of them as competitors. I think of other players in the ecosystem, and they're pursuing a strategy which works for them. And they can be successful. This is a giant market. Peter's 99%. I think there's a version of all these companies that are very, very successful. So then if you come back to us, we really come from that first principles. What's the de-risking? What's the engineering focus rather than the research focus, even though we do a lot of research? So those are kind of all the ingredients. Sorry, it's not like a clean, simple answer, but that's kind of the culture of mentality.
The one thing I would just add is that I mean, when we think about, let's say, reducing our own risks in some of this work, it is a lot about having some diversity and having multiple bets. And so even when we think about, let's say, our SDS strategy, yes, it's a product, and yes, there's a certain technical architecture, but actually we have several architectures that we're working on in parallel. And they can at some
across
point,
5 verticals.
Exactly. And they can, when we see different performance wins in different areas, we incorporate those into the master architecture. And so there is a diversification strategy at the technical level, which actually ends up having a de-risked product offering.
Yeah. And the other point there is like us being, an international company, we have offices everywhere. So we collect data in all these different places. We collect data from all these different verticals. All that stuff plays into, and of course we use our own tools. We use our own tools to build an autonomy system. And we absolutely have customers who are saying, and who have said, hey, we're always going to build our own L2 plus system, but we'll use your tools. And that's completely fine. And I think just for avoidance of doubt, I think for especially people who are non-technical, they sometimes simplify this thing like, oh, if a customer uses your tools, you get all this insight. That's not how it works. It's like we're selling laptops. Just because Apple sells you a laptop doesn't mean Apple then reads all your stuff and something gets into your business. It's a great relationship. And by the way, it's a symbiotic relationship. Where the customer uses whatever they need from us, not more, not less, whatever they need from us. And by the way, that strategy is not a new strategy. That's a strategy of Bosch and Delphi/Aptiv or Visteon, whatever company, Denso, where they work very closely with the customer, and then and sometimes the customer uses them, sometimes the customer doesn't.
Yeah, but you have if you want to use the cookie term, the ingredients that are needed to build these companies, and what you have at Applied is growth. We see that Aptiv is now publicly splitting into two. You have the old traditional tier 1 business, and then you have the growth business, but you're really focused on growth, and you're also focused, we talked about this offline, of de-risking and always ensuring that you can have a sustainable company. How would you compare the deal with Komatsu to the deal you publicly announced last year with Isuzu?
Different in the sense of they're both large Japanese companies, but that's kind of where I shouldn't say it's that different. This is a little bit of where the similarities end, because mining is so different from on-road trucking. Where there is similarities is we're using a lot of similar infrastructure, right? The similar products. The Isuzu relationship is an L4 trucking relationship for on-road autonomy, and mining is obviously not on-road, but they're still large, heavy machinery. So there's overlap there, but they're different. There are different applications in different domains, even though they're two large Japanese companies.
But I like it because it complements each other. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Okay, so you've got the peanut butter here when the on-road, you have the jelly here with the off-road. They go together, and it helps build a big sustainable business.
I would say the analogy is more like blueberry and strawberries. They're rather than peanut butter and jelly. I mean, the one's coming from peanuts, and so they're more similar in that way. And the jelly is applied intuition. Is anybody even listening to this anymore? I mean, these analogies are not very good.
Okay, so Peter, analogies aside, because I'll probably botch that if I try and give you another analogy. The Komatsu mining trucks are huge. They're ginormous. And if you look at the Isuzu trucks, the L4, different environments, different sized trucks. One's longer, one's bigger. How do you develop the software for these different environments and different vehicle sizes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's so many different parts of the overall software package, right? So there's the entire embedded software stack, which actually runs on the vehicle. There's the infrastructure piece, which is all of the data management and model training infrastructure that's really off-board. And then there's also just the science and the true engineering of the stack itself, which is algorithms and machine learning and model training and model tuning, all of those things. And in each of these components, there's actually a lot of similarities. And I'll remind the audience as well that world's best vehicle dynamics package is also out of Applied Intuition. This called Vehicle Sim or Car Sim. And so we're able to utilize that and for both giant heavy trucks as well as on-road trucks or light-duty trucks. It's the math is very similar. And so we're able to utilize all this similar infrastructure across all these different domains.
Are there any sensor or hardware limitations as you build and scale this?
So that's actually a very technically deep question. So I'll give a higher level answer, but this is like that one topic. There are entire conferences literally on, on that one topic. So the history of autonomy has been such that when autonomy was just starting, all of the algorithms were very, very handcrafted and tuned for specific sensors. And if you wanted to even move the sensor up or down a few inches on the same vehicle, you had to tune your algorithm and do something very different. What's been almost the breakthrough, let's say, of the last few years is with these larger models and the advent of transformers and all of these modern techniques. There are ways to train these autonomy models now that make them care a lot less about the specific sensor position. And so we're using that science in all of our autonomy stacks such that you become a lot more agnostic to the precise positioning of the sensor and even to the sensor modality. And so saying, well, yeah, you could have a LiDAR or two LiDARs or no LiDARs and complement with more cameras. And all of that sort of then feeds into this, what your overall model is going to then output.
And for the audience, who's not, let's say, working in autonomy and is interested in the market, a good analogy is if you look at how chatbots were, chatbots pre-Transformers, pre-ChatGPT, you would ask something simple like in a car, you would say, hey, can you play my radio? And that might work, but can you play my music? Might not, because it's really hard-coded to a very specific query. But we all knew that chatbots were not very good. It was just instinctively, you never used one. And then ChatGPT comes along, and there isn't, OpenAI doesn't have to do a giant marketing around, hey, you just use it and you see it's a lot better. And it's way more flexible because just the underlying technology is just fundamentally different. And I think, we're taking a lot of advantage of that. I think whether it's SDS or some of our other autonomy efforts, I think without the breakthroughs that we've seen in the last, let's say, 3-4 years, I don't know if we could do the business that we're doing, frankly speaking. Even if you look back at mature autonomy programs trying to do cars and trucks, not 5-7 years ago, those would be independent teams. And now I think more reasonably than ever, they can be one team. There's obviously still issues, and it's not as elegant as one model rules them all, from fighter jets to passenger cars, but there could be in the future. And kind of our long scope of the company is we do believe ultimately there'll be some version of convergence across all these different autonomy ecosystems, and that umbrella of vehicle intelligence then extends to in-cabin, and that's our bread and butter. So if we do great in-cabin stuff in tanks, it actually helps our passenger car work. And is not intuitive, but it's or it doesn't seem obvious, but it's absolutely real. Like, HMI, voice models, all of that working and, across different domains.
Peter, I'm not going to get technical, but I'll put the curiosity technical hat on, I'll say. Qasar mentioned breakthrough technologies. We've all seen the breakthrough technology. Has there been any key breakthrough technologies that has allowed Apply to move as fast as you're moving that's really helped accelerate the business?
I wish it were as easy to say that there was one thing. It's more of there's 1,000 little things that we try to get right, and I think those things together allow our engineering organization, I think, to execute quite effectively. And so certainly with the boom in AI tools, not only have we adjusted our own tool strategy to be very AI first, but also our engineers are using the best of breed AI tools that are available to us. And so there's really great AI code completion tools. There's great AI tools that help with the quality assurance of software that are great. There's AI tools that help with some program management aspects. And so if you leverage all of these things in the right way, let's say you boost the productivity of your team by 10%, and that's huge, right? That's, if you have a big team, that's many, many millions or tens of millions of dollars a year in benefit.
Yeah, I've done hundreds of millions. And then that's on the, let's say, the core writing software, testing, developing software. The actual architectures as you know, I'm sure it's like the China thing, like how long does an autonomy conversation before end to end comes up? End to end is basically de facto default now as what will be the future of some variant or version of end to end, but not classically kind of hand-tuned models, basically, even at the submodule level. So that's obviously a big deal. I think for us, that's very particular to Applied. The fact that we're multi-domain, and the fact that and that's more of a business thing. We can spread this cost across so many different, like the Komatsu announcement, which is, as Peter, the Komatsu mining CEO, says in the video. A lot of German Peters in that time, the automotive, very common name. That's true. Qasar is even not that common in Pakistan. But anyways, he says in the video, one of the largest relationships in Komatsu's 100-year history, technical history. It's not obvious, but that also helps our SDS effort, because we're going to invest a lot more in that, and we're going to invest a lot more in mining autonomy and mining generally, and that will help us. So I think that's kind of more of the business thing, is we just continue to pour resources into these problems. And sometimes it'll come from, earlier this year, we announced a Trayton relationship. And then, all of these, we have, a very public relationship with Porsche. And so all of those things, contribute to the pot of this vehicle intelligence problem that we're trying to solve. And so that's maybe not an architecture or sensor or AI coding tools, but it does actually help us.
From the Apply side, are you referencing their vehicle OS that you've developed? Is that a common denominator that goes across multitude of these partnerships?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So the vehicle OS is really the whole embedded software stack, as well as a bunch of offboard technology related to the management of that embedded onboard software stack. And so the onboard software stack that extends all the way as low as the bootloaders that run on the vehicle, up to the things that the user is actually interacting with in the vehicle. And so, yeah, our vehicle OS is it's a core part of our strategy, and it's a great product.
And then, not to go technical again, because I'm getting curious, Peter, is SDS built on top of vehicle OS?
It is. It uses many of the vehicle OS components.
If you take, let's just say, for privacy purposes, let's call Acme OEM, because you work with, I believe it's 18 of the largest OEMs. So let's just call it Acme OEM.
We'll call it Acme. It's good. That's right. That's correct.
Can they deploy SDS without vehicle OS, or is this part of a package?
So they can. It really just depends on, let's say, where you draw the line of. So vehicle OS, we consider it's a collection of all of these different software modules that together can be used as a full operating system for a vehicle. SDS depends on a subset of those, but that doesn't mean that the Acme automaker needs to take everything in that package of modules. They can take just the modules that SDS needs.
Yeah, one of the core, I would say, realities of automotive is specifically, but it extends to the other verticals as well, is modularization is important. Because even two OEMs who are both, let's say, two premium car makers in Germany, who could be based, 100, miles from each other, are going to have very different strategies. It's just the reality of the situation. So we just allow that flexibility. I think we really learned that in our tooling business, which is, still a big chunk of the company, and it's kind of our bread and butter. And tooling is like, we'll have folks use some of our tools and some of theirs and mix and match. So we just extend that all the way to operating systems and all the way to autonomy.
Staying on the operating system from a user perspective, when do we see an announcement or an update on your OpenAI partnership?
I mean, we just did that announcement like 2 or 3 months ago. So this is where the lower expectations is, comes in. For the folks who don't know at home, I was previously at Y Combinator, where I was a COO. Sam Altman was the president. And that's where OpenAI, comes out of. Literally was founded then. So we know OpenAI extremely well at a personal and at a professional level. We'll continue to work on that. I mean, we like those guys; they like us. I think we see, we're very different companies. Of course, they're a large language model company and they're a consumer company. But where there's similarities is we're very technical companies, full of engineers who like to work on really difficult problems. And so I think in that way, there's a lot of synergy. So I hate that word, but I'll use it. But more to come. Yeah. I think, just setting expectations could be years or shorter. Yeah.
I'm going to take the shorter side on that, and something tells me that I'm going to be right.
No comment on that, Grayson. No comment.
Okay, I won't push you for a comment there. What I will push you for though is, what are you seeing from your OEM customers as it relates to L2 plus systems? Are they interested in that? Are they getting feedback from their customers where they want this technology and they say, wait a second, we're better building vehicles and building the software, but hey, Applied, you can build this for us and put it in the cars? What sort of inbound are you seeing from them based on their customer demand?
Yeah, so huge spectrum, and let's just talk about kind of time horizon. The automotive industry, past car industry specifically, has gone through a real love-hate relationship with build buy. And there used to be, let's say if you go really back in time, the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was starting the car business, buy was it was the default. And it was basically the OEMs are integrating. And then in the early 2000s, the teens, the emergence of, and I think heavily influenced by Cruise and some others, that we're going to build. Like even if GM is doing Cruise, or we're going to do some version of an L2 plus system, etc. And then you have this transformer shift. Then you have China, and then you have the advent of Tesla. Tesla continues to get better and better. And I think you're seeing more of the buy today than you've seen in probably 5 years or so. I'm still wondering if buy will actually happen, even though we have an SDS product, mainly because, the conversation inside our customers, inside of our OEMs always is, what is strategically important for us? And the thing that I would say to them is, if your end consumer can't tell the difference between, did you buy this seat from Lear or did you buy it from somebody else, does it really matter if you built it, if Lear built it, or somebody else built it? It's just a seat, and it needs 8-way power function.
And the cost matter.
And the cost matter. Say the car business is a cost business, and so so I think the OEMs today are less emotional about building than ever before, with a caveat, they might still build. So I think that's the rough, I would say, from our vantage point. So if with that context, well, why would we get into SDS if we believe everyone's going to continue to build in-house? Is we think our strategy, the way that we've enumerated it just in this last 30 minutes, is one that over a long period of time, we might not be the best today. We might not be the best tomorrow, but we're not going anywhere. And we're going to flood the zone. We're going to keep hitting. And as long as we run the company responsibly, with safety as a priority, and both in terms of the actual safety of the system, but also the way that we operate the company financially as a going concern, there will be a time where I think we really will have a shot. And we're playing. The best professional advice I've ever gotten was super random. I got it from the NEA lead, Scott Sandell. Randomly met him at a holiday party, and he said, "I'm Scott Sandell," and I didn't know the face, but I knew the name. I was like, "Oh," and I said, "Hey, listen, we're probably never going to talk again." And for the folks, I ask this question often to people. I say this thing often: we're never going to talk again. What's the biggest thing you've ever learned? And Scott is like Mark Andreessen. Like Scott is like is very, very accomplished venture capitalist. And he said, make every decision on the longest time horizon possible. And I think that's our strategy here on SDS. It's like, I don't know if the build buy has actually changed, or the OEMs are suddenly in a different mood, but in the long time horizon, we will have the Lear conversation, which is like, everyone has an L2++ system. Now let's buy from somebody who has, who's offering it in all these modalities for an efficient, cheap price. That's sensor agnostic. That's silicon agnostic. And that's really our value proposition.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think, of course, we support a lot of the industry with our tools, and that's great. And we keep making those tools better and better and better and better. But regardless of how great the tools are, building a production system is still super hard. And some companies are going to do it, and that's awesome. But not everyone's going to be able to get there. And so we want to make sure that all of our customers, whether or not they can build it themselves, they actually have a really great opportunity.
If you're also, by the way, as you as an audience member, you're trying to assess, and somebody says, we won this business with an OEM, what you really have to double click into is what business. Because even within the let's take L2++, there is a safety stack, there's a parking stack, there is regulatory work, and then there's urban, then there's highway. So it's rarely that the whole kit and caboodle, tools, infrastructure, data engine, parking, all the way is just going to give it to one company. As a matter of fact, it just doesn't happen.
There's eyes on and eyes off, and there's HMI, and there's the mapping system. There's so many of these.
So many components. And so the realistic thing is that's a lot more marketing typically when somebody really pounds the table and says, we got this great deal with an OEM, because it's just OEMs are not. But even if you take like a very public deal with like NVIDIA and Mercedes, if you spend any amount of time in there and you look in the details, it's not that simple. Like Mercedes is actually doing a bunch of that work. NVIDIA is doing some of that work. It's not Mercedes calls Jensen and outsources their. No, they're a smart group of executives, and they want to use their partners in the most effective manner. And for marketing, you can simplify it and say NVIDIA is doing whatever, the L2 Plus system, but the details are way more nuanced. They're doing actually some part. Maybe they're doing hardware. Maybe they're not doing the algorithms. And that suddenly it's like, oh, it's actually not what the average listener thinks is a quote unquote deal.
The common denominator across all this is that automotive supply chains are highly complex. I mean, that's the common denominator.
Yeah, I mean, this is an entire universe of millions of engineers. So we try to like separate, try to simplify this into like, you have a deal with this OEM. Does somebody else have a deal with that OEM? It's like, no, it's more complex. There's a version where one OEM could be working with 4 autonomy partners for all different things and different vehicle types. That's complete. And it's just like the tier ones of the past, where a ZF, a Bosch, a Conti, an Aptiv, a Denso, a Valeo could all work on the same car. You wouldn't be like, well, that's not a Bosch car, that's not a Valeo car, that's not a Denso car.
That's a great example with the OEM. If you look at publicly with Hyundai and their Savannah plant, they're working with Motional. I know that they're majority owner. They're working with AV Ride, and they're working with Waymo. Same platform. The Ioniq 5, they built a special version for them. So they're dancing with people. Toyota's dancing with multiple individuals. But getting back to the point around, is a company going to buy it or they're going to build it? Based on all the research that I've been doing, and you're following business pattern trends and you're following talent trends, is that I'll go on the record here and I'll state with you, in the future, a majority, when I say a majority, I'll say over 75 to 80+% of individual companies in the long horizon automotive will license their L2 plus stacks going all the way to L4. They won't build them in-house for 2 main reasons. 1, the cost of capital to do that, and 2, the ability to attract long-term talent that actually wants to stay there. And I'm sorry, OEMs, not get frustrated by bureaucracy. They just want to build.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason a tier 1 ecosystem, by the way, exists. So the pendulum has moved from completely tier 1 to, hey, we want to, there's reason. You take Bosch and, understanding of braking systems. They absorb brake capacity globally, and therefore they become really expert at making great braking systems. And that extends to ZF and steering, and that extends to, Aptiv and wiring harnesses and what it is. So I think generally, yes. I'm not as confident because, I'm also have to do this stuff on the 75%. But I think a big chunk, for sure. I think so. But, the real debate always is, what's the time horizon? So I think if we're talking in 5 years, absolutely. Are we all going to make it to the 5 years? And so that's why for us, it's as a business, we want to be in an absolutely, rock solid position that we can go up and down with the economic and geopolitical winds that change, continue to develop these products. And so when somebody does come and visit us, they see that it's a better product than when they last visited, and their work, thoughtfully continuing to make progress, and that we can be that long-term partner. And we wouldn't have talked about SDS if we weren't already happy with some degree of where the product is already. And so we like where we're at. And we do invite OEMs to come and take the test. It doesn't cost any money. It's cheaper than going to Cedar Point for the Michigan people, but well, I don't know what the Great America Parkway is here for you can take the ride. It's free. There's no tickets, no height requirement, and and on the other end, you might say, hey, we might work with these applied guys for something, and that'd be awesome.
Your customers wants to build, and I'll say to the audience here is if you do research on this conversation, look into veto rights that some certain suppliers have as it relates to autonomy. There's a lot of stuff that you can uncover there. Peter, when you ship the SDS to, let's say, we're going to use the term Acme Automotive for privacy purposes. You ship it to Acme Automotive. How is that system updated and maintained? And on the back side of that, is there a path for you working with that OEM customer to scale to L4?
Yeah. So on the first part about updating, I mean, this is a core part of the technical strategy of the system. This is actually also where some of the vehicle OS components come to play, because for our vehicle OS work, one of the most important capabilities of that is highly reliable updates. And it's easy to say updates, but updates are actually a very complicated, very, very deep set of technical things that all have to happen in perfect sequence. And there's a lot of fallbacks and things that make sure that the system is going to be safe and work correctly after the update is done.
And we saw a bunch of this at Google. I mean, this is where we got our first taste of updating things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so updates are absolutely part of the strategy. And part of that also depends on what the automaker, what Acme Automaker wants to do on their end. Right. Some automakers, they want to provide this experience of, hey, every 2 weeks or every month, you're going to get an update. Other automakers or different brands, they might say actually for their customers, they want it to be a longer cycle. So maybe only
or pay to upgrade. There's a huge variation of that. Yeah. I think the way to think about it for the audience, it's broad software systems, but specifically in L2++, these are living organisms. It's not the hardware. We're going to send you a radar and that's your radar. And it is. Mm-hmm. And so a living organism, needs maintenance. It needs, there's always going to be updates to, the software purely from a security perspective, like you do with your phones and laptops. And then, of course, there is just increased functionality and the maintenance and ongoing testing. So, yeah, I think now today in automotive in 2025, there isn't a lot of debate about, constant updates. Maybe in 2015, there was some debate. 2005, that was not a conversation at all. So,
and I would say today, even in the broader industry, it's less of, let's say, companies not having a desire to do it. It really is quite technical. Do you actually have the ability to do this reliably? There's, I won't name names, but there's some notorious stories of updates going out and then bricking a bunch of vehicles.
Yeah, even for, quote unquote emergent new OEMs who are supposed to have no legacy architecture. And that's it just shows you how difficult the thing is. These are not trivial problems. I think one of the big lessons, also fortunate to work at Google, learn a lot of things. One of the big lessons from Google was, if you look at fundamentally how Chrome is different from, people don't even remember Internet Explorer, but it used to be this thing that was that was a browser. Internet Explorer used to have explicit versions. Right. We totally forget that our browsers are being updated now constantly. I would say, I bet you there's a notable browser update every few weeks to month. It just happens in the background because it's such a complex technology. But the real transition was Chrome emerges with the view that updating is the heart of the product. That this quiet background update is the heart of the product. And I think that same thing's happening with L2+ systems. It'll happen, and automotive broadly.
And also, Chrome allowed you the ability to build things a lot more easier than other browsers in the market. And it really went on to change the browser market post Netscape. So let's stay on the Chrome theme here, because that obviously changed the browser market. Tesla's changing the automotive market, the updates, the FSD, the charging. How do traditional OEMs keep up with the massive advancements that Tesla's making? And I say that with a caveat is that consumers are used to and comfortable with their vehicle updating, and then you just plug it in, it just works. How do they keep up with that?
So there's this company called Applied Intuition. based in Mountain View, California. That's the most direct plug you will ever hear. I mean, in the business of doing plugs. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of ways. Partnerships is one of them. I think, though, we often talk about the positives of Tesla, and we sometimes underemphasize the positives of you could say, quote unquote, almost a pejorative term of legacy OEMs. Globally recognized brands, global distribution and servicing, trust, emotional relations. There are people who grow up and they say, even to this day, I want a BMW. When I make it, I'm going to be driving a Mercedes. When I make it, I'm going to, I want a Ford F-150. Like that's and so yeah, the Bay Area people love Tesla, but the other 97-ish and some change percent of the universe is, still looks at those products and they're constantly buying them all the time. So as long as the OEMs can do that, which is continue to build good, relevant products, and maintain their brands, I think they'll have a position to play. In the subsection of the product of specifically L2 plus technology and specifically the software-defined vehicle, where they struggle, I mean, literally, there are companies like us that exist, and I think that's where you partner. My if I could if I could get one message into every automotive OEM's head, would be choose the option which is safe and fast. And incidentally, that's our number one value of Applied, like move safe, move fast. And so even the build, buy, or who to partner with, all of those things ultimately can be reduced to kind of fairly simple values. I mean, if anything, I think, Tesla's been, you say Tesla is kind of educated. Tesla's now 20 years old. And the broad ecosystem for over 10 years has known the things that you said. I mean, a consumer knows updating and FSD. So all the OEM executives know this. So then the more difficult question is, why don't you have more Tesla-like vehicles out in the market? And you do have some Tesla-like vehicles. I think you look at a Taycan, it's a very impressive product. You mentioned Ioniq, it's a very impressive product. Different price points and different, customer bases, of course. Those are two very different products. But so I don't think they're completely lost and Tesla's completely won. The harshest maybe indication of that, and Tesla is a great company too, to be very, very clear, is they've lost market share. And more specifically, they've lost the number of vehicles they're selling. They're shipping less vehicles year on year. That's actually like a big no-no in the OEM world. So I think that's also a new kind of thing that's changed, is like this infallible company, this company that could never be touched, is suddenly now an approachable competitor. And so I think that also is inspiring for your legacy OEM.
I'm old enough to remember, you're going to laugh here, when you made it and you hit the jackpot, you bought a big Cadillac and a gold Rolex. That's it. You made it. It was game on. It was Jimmy Johnson cowboy style. You made it. You were the top of the heap.
I literally worked at Cadillac in that era. So yes, I absolutely know. I worked in the Cadillac building, 12 and Van Dyke for all those who are Michigan people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, on that side point, Cadillacs are actually quite impressive again. I mean, this is the car part of me. V-Series, super impressive. I mean, if you go back, the M badges used to be amazing, right? The old, M3 E46s, that used to be everything. I mean, now if you talk to, we're also, at least I'm not young. When I talk to like new grads and they say like, hey, Cadillac V, and you're like, CTS-V, you're like, whoa, wow, I like it. Being a Michigan guy, being a GMI alum.
Yeah, the new EVs are pretty good.
Yeah.
And the thing that you had in those Cadillacs, I'm going to date myself again. You had an 8-track. Then you were cooking. I mean, this was the cat's meow. You were hot stuff. Now it comes down to software. Peter, do you think software, as autonomy scales and as L2 plus scales, and just as the automotive business grows, matures, does software become the defining factor, or is it always going to be the brand and, I'll say it, the driving experience?
I mean, I think it's all of those things. That you can't separate it into any one thing. But I mean, fundamentally, our customers, they generally want to have really great products, right? And so you want the mechanical systems to be outstanding. We're talking EVs. You want to have a great charging experience. You want to have a great software experience in cabin. You want to have a great ADAS. And if you think about in 2025, right, our customers today, they're planning out their 2028, 2029, 2030, 31, 32 products, right? And so the things that we're doing today will actually inform what goes to production many years from now.
Dieter Zetsche is like an advisor to Applied, has been for many years. He was a former CEO of Mercedes at Mercedes-Benz and Daimler Chrysler before then. And I asked him once, because Mercedes is a pretty impressive brand, like purely from right? And I asked, what is a brand? Because he was really responsible for that resurgence of the Mercedes brand. And he had a great answer, which is it's just a collection of experiences. So part of those experiences are L2 plus. Part of it's the software defined. Part of it's the door closing still. As much as people make jokes about those things, that hey, all these people buy Teslas and other products and they're the fit and finish, it's still a part of the experience. All those collections equals the brand, and it's a spectrum. We'll have this conversation in 10 years, and software and autonomy will be that much more important to the brand. But it's not the only thing. It'll always be a part of a larger conversation.
It's the smell, it's the texture, it's the materials, it's the fabrics, it's the don't laugh, it's the colors, it's the way if you look at it from different things. All of that goes into cultivating what you want somebody to buy. Peter, you said that as we all know, it's 7-year cycles that they're planning out for these automotives. As Applied's building, let's call it tools of the future that are used today, because you are building for the future. How do you meet your OEM partners? Okay, Peter, we're ready to get closer to putting your software on. How do you meet them at that middle point when they're planning so far in advance?
So it is true, you do plan pretty far into the future, but there's also some pretty significant milestones that happen during those long cycles where you sort of have to decide, well, are we going to do the thing that we did before? Or are we going to do something new? And I'd say we're lucky as a company that we get to be with our customers during all of those checkpoints. And where it makes sense, we're able to then insert some of our technology into those different checkpoints.
Yeah. Also, I think one incorrect view that a lot of OEMs continue to have and really hold on to is the importance of the SOP, the start of production. I've done SOP literally for Cadillac. I did SOPs. It was the I don't remember the car name now. It was one of the it was the SRX. Now I don't remember. And I'll have to fact check that afterwards. But
was it XLR or no?
No, that was before.
Okay.
It was the first crossover wagon.
Oh yeah.
You guys remember that?
Yeah,
it was short lived.
Oh, yeah, this is the one that looked like for carrying hearses, right?
yeah. Please, that's it's so true, and I think that's why it didn't do so well as a product. It was after like CTS had a big. Anyways, we're going completely on a tangent. The focus on SOPs. I'm proud that I worked on that startup production, and that used to be a big thing. Actually, though, in a software-defined universe, startup production. That's the reason that matters is just very tactically. Is that's when the unions kick in. That's when the big factory turns up and you got widgets coming out the other end. And from an automaker, that's when inventory costs and all of the dealer networks and marketing. So SOP becomes a big deal. Actually, in the software world, you don't hear the word startup production for Google Maps or for any software. You don't hear the next Chrome version. It just happens. And so often we have to talk to OEMs and I think and kind of teach them. Actually, the SOP is less important in the software universe. The more important thing is we're testing that software today, and we're finding those issues today because we still have a couple of years before we get to SOP. And then we make sure in the factory line and all the way in the consumer stand, we can update and continue to improve the software. But we're not going to wait for some big bang integration 12 months before SOP to see, hey, does applied software work and does the L2 plus system work or does the vehicle OS do what it's supposed to do? It's the moment we start engage in the work, we need to start. So there is like almost getting like dissolving some of the focus on startup production because it's just not as relevant for software.
What you're doing is you're giving your customers the ability to accelerate and the ability to scale. And the common denominator here at Qasar and Peter is that applied intuition is firing on all cylinders. And you were the most interesting company in autonomy, and I'm not going to live you down on that. So what's next, guys? What's next?
Well, we'll call you when something happens, Grayson. I told you last time we would, and we held to our word, and we'll do it again. We appreciate your enthusiasm. I really say that. I think for the folks, for the other founders who are listening, there's a lot of founders I know who listen to this kind of stuff as well, because they mention it. Is when you work at a big company, you pay on your day-to-day basis with a frustration. You have all these goals you want to knock out, but there's all these other competing goals, and there's limited bandwidth of the CEO, whatever. When you're in the startup world and you're a founder, you pay for it with fear. You don't know actually what's around the corner. You don't know what's coming down. You don't know how the industry is going to change, and macroeconomics, geopolitics, and you got to feed all the people that work for you, and you're responsible for them. So I hope there's a lot of positive things in the future, but I prepare for an eventuality that there isn't, and we want to build a company and a set of products that can weather all those storms. And I'm happy with where the company is, and both of us are super proud of the company. But yeah, there's always like a nervousness, which is like, oh, we want to do great. We're going to continue to do great things. Let's not take our eye off the ball. So we appreciate your fandom, but you'll hear less enthusiasm and more pragmatism from us.
That's what makes you a great CEO. And Peter, I ask you every time, and I know the answer. Is Applied Intuition hiring?
We're hiring.
We are more than ever.
Yeah, I would say just to call attention maybe to some specific areas, engineers that have experience in data engineering and data infrastructure. Of course, AI. I mean, I feel everybody's hiring AI engineers, but we are especially hiring AI engineers.
It's in our initials.
Yeah, and then also engineers that have interest in U.S. defense. We have plenty of openings in our defense work.
Yeah. The why join Applied versus, let's say, another company is you get to work on sports cars and fighter jets and Komatsu dirt movers. I mean, they're all super interesting things. Let the other guys work on a chatbot.
and ads.
Yeah, and ads is like watching my OpenAI friends are going to send me texts like, hey man, chatbots are actually pretty important.
And the cool thing is, if you join Applied Intuition, something in my intuition tells me you'll keep continuing to build things. So I would say this: join Applied Intuition, build the future. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Applied Intuition, the world's most interesting autonomy company. Qasar, Peter, thanks as always for coming on the road to autonomy.
Thanks, Grayson. Take care. See you.